People decide how much they respect you before you finish your first sentence. And most of the time, you're weakening yourself without realizing it. The Stoics believed weakness isn't loud, it's habitual, small behaviors, repeated daily, quietly shaping how others see you and how you see yourself. This video isn't about confidence tricks or acting dominant. It's about removing the habits that drain your presence and replace strength with noise. By the end of this video, you'll recognize the patterns that make people overlook you, and more importantly, you'll know exactly what to stop doing. Stay until the end. The final habit is the one most people defend, and the one that costs them the most respect. 1. Over-explaining yourself. Why it quietly destroys your presence. Most people don't realize this, but the fastest way to lose respect in a conversation is not what you say. It's how much you explain after you've said it. The moment you start over-explaining, people feel something shift. Not logically, psychologically. You're no longer sharing information, you're defending yourself. And defense signals doubt. In American culture especially, confidence is not measured by volume, it's measured by decisiveness. Strong people say their piece and let the room sit with it. Weak habits sound familiar. I just want to explain where I'm coming from. I didn't mean it like that. Let me clarify. I hope that makes sense. On the surface, this looks reasonable, but to others, it sends a different message. I'm not sure you'll accept what I said. And when you communicate uncertainty, people respond with pressure. They question you, they push back, they test boundaries. Not because they're trying to dominate you, but because uncertainty invites negotiation. The Stoics understood this dynamic long before modern psychology did. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that truth doesn't need applause and strength doesn't need approval. When you over-explain, you're trying to control how others feel about your words. That's an impossible task, and the attempt alone weakens your presence. Think about leaders you respect. They don't over-explain. They don't walk statements back. They don't soften every sentence to avoid discomfort. They speak clearly, and they stop. Silence does the rest. In the US, especially in work, leadership, and social settings, the person who speaks less but clearer is almost always seen as more competent. Over-explaining makes people subconsciously think, he's unsure. She's afraid of disagreement. They don't fully stand behind that decision. Even when your idea is good, your delivery undermines it. Stoicism teaches a hard but freeing truth. You don't owe everyone clarity. You owe yourself integrity. When clarification is necessary, give it once, calmly, not defensively, not repeatedly, not emotionally. Then stop. Let others sit with it. When you remove the habit of over-explaining, your words gain weight. Your confidence feels grounded. People stop interrupting you. Your boundaries become visible. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to convince anyone. You simply stand by what you said. And that quiet firmness, especially in a culture full of noise and justification, is deeply respected. The Stoics knew this. A person who doesn't rush to be understood cannot be rushed into submission. And when you stop over-explaining, you don't become less kind. You become more solid. 2. Laughing to soften your words. Why it signals insecurity. Most people think laughing makes them likable. In reality, nervous laughter makes you look unsure. Especially in American social and professional culture, where confidence is often judged in seconds. Laughing after every sentence quietly weakens your message. You say something serious, then laugh. You make a point, then smile to soften it. What people hear isn't humor, they hear hesitation. Nervous laughter is the mind trying to escape tension. It's a reflex that says, "Please don't judge me. Please don't take this too seriously. Please be comfortable with me." But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Strong people don't apologize for their words with laughter. They say what they mean and allow silence to exist afterward. In US culture, at work, in leadership, in social groups, silence after speaking often reads as confidence. Noise reads as uncertainty. When you laugh unnecessarily, you blur your own authority. Your words might be intelligent, but your delivery tells people, "I'm not fully convinced myself," and people always believe tone over content. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed self-control shows up not in what you say, but in how you hold yourself after you say it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about inner steadiness, not needing to fill space, not needing to entertain, not needing to ease other people's discomfort. Nervous laughter is often a sign of emotional monitoring. You're watching people's reactions too closely. You're adjusting in real time. You're trying to manage the room. That drains presence. In the US especially, the people who command respect are not the loudest or funniest. They are the most grounded. Think of someone you instantly trust. They don't rush to laugh. They don't rush to explain. They don't rush to smooth things over. They speak. They pause. They stay composed. That pause is power. Stoicism teaches this principle. Your expression should match your intention. If your message is serious, let your face be serious. If your words matter, let them stand without cushioning. This doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means being comfortable in your own skin. When you remove nervous laughter, your words carry more weight. People listen longer. Interruptions decrease. Your presence feels calmer and more confident. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to perform. You simply occupy space without apology. And in a culture where many people talk to be liked, the person who speaks calmly and stops is often the one remembered. The Stoics knew this. Stillness is not emptiness. It is control. And control, quiet, composed, unforced, is always respected. 3. Apologizing. When you've done nothing wrong, how sorry quietly erodes your authority. There is a habit so normalized that most people mistake it for politeness. They apologize before they speak, before they ask, before they take up space. Sorry for bothering you. Sorry if this sounds stupid. Sorry, but I think. In American culture, this habit doesn't read as kind. It reads as uncertain, and uncertainty is costly. Every unnecessary apology sends a silent message. I don't fully believe I deserve to be here. I expect resistance. I'm already backing down. You may not intend this, but communication is judged by impact, not intention. The Stoics understood that language shapes identity. What you repeatedly say about yourself, you slowly become. When sorry becomes your default, you begin shrinking your presence without realizing it. Your words lose firmness. Your requests sound optional. Your opinions feel negotiable. People start responding to you as someone who can be interrupted, corrected, or overlooked, not because they are malicious, but because your behavior taught them how. Stoicism draws a sharp line between accountability and submission. Apologizing when you caused harm is strength. Apologizing to avoid discomfort is surrender. Marcus Aurelius never urged himself to be invisible. He urged himself to be just, firm, and clear. Over-apologizing often comes from fear. Fear of conflict, fear of being disliked, fear of being seen as wrong. But here's the paradox. The more you apologize to be liked, the less you are respected. In the US especially, in work environments, leadership and social dynamics, respect comes before likability. People follow those who sound grounded, not those who sound apologetic for existing. Think about how authority sounds. It doesn't rush. It doesn't soften unnecessarily. It doesn't pre-defend itself. Authority speaks plainly. Stoic speech is economical, few words, clear intent, no emotional padding. When a Stoic apologizes, it is specific, deliberate, final, no over-explaining, no self-blame, no shrinking. But when no harm was done, the Stoic does not apologize. He replaces apology with respectful certainty. Instead of, "Sorry, can I ask a question?" he says, "I have a question." Instead of, "Sorry to interrupt," he says, "Let me add something." This is not arrogance. This is self-respect, expressed calmly. And people feel it immediately. When you stop apologizing unnecessarily, your voice sounds more confident, your body language becomes steadier. People listen instead of correcting. Your ideas land with more weight. You don't need to become louder. You don't need to dominate conversations. You simply stop signaling weakness. The Stoics believed this deeply. You are not required to apologize for being present. When you speak from that understanding, your words stop asking for permission. They begin to carry authority. And once your speech reflects self-respect, your presence does too. 4. Seeking validation. Too often, how approval silently weakens the mind. There is a quiet habit that weakens people without them realizing it. The habit is not arrogance, it is not pride, it is the need to be reassured, the need to hear confirmation before feeling at ease with a decision. Was that okay? Do you think I handled that right? Did I say the right thing? At first, these questions feel responsible. They even feel thoughtful. But repeated often, they reveal something else, a mind that does not trust itself. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that a person who depends on approval cannot remain internally stable. Their peace rises and falls with reactions they do not control. Praise brings relief, briefly. Criticism brings disturbance, deeply. Silence brings unease. This creates a restless mind, not because the world is harsh, but because authority has been handed outward. Stoic philosophy begins with a radical shift. Your opinion of your own actions must matter more than anyone else's. Validation seeking reverses this order. It places the crowd above conscience, reaction above reason. Over time, this weakens judgment. You hesitate, you second guess. You adjust your behavior not based on what is right, but based on what will be accepted. The Stoics warned against this subtle surrender. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that no amount of approval can make a wrong action right, and no amount of disapproval can make a right action wrong. Validation does not improve character. It only calms insecurity. And insecurity cannot guide a mind. This does not mean ignoring feedback. The Stoics listened carefully, but selectively. They asked, does this feedback sharpen my discipline? Does it strengthen my integrity? Does it help me act more wisely? If yes, they accepted it. If not, they let it pass without disturbance. Validation seeking blurs this filter. Everything feels personal. Every reaction feels meaningful. Every silence feels dangerous. This drains mental energy. Stoics replaced validation with self-verification. They asked inward questions. Did I act with honesty? Did I respond with restraint? Did I choose reason over impulse? These questions restore authority. When approval comes from within, something changes quietly. You speak more clearly. You explain less. You stop chasing reassurance. Your presence feels settled, not rigid, not cold, settled. People sense this steadiness because the person who does not need approval cannot be easily pressured. They cannot be flattered into compromise. They cannot be shamed into retreat. They cannot be pulled off course by opinion. The Stoics believed this deeply. A mind that governs itself cannot be governed by others. When validation no longer decides your worth, the mind becomes calmer, not because others stop judging, but because judgment has lost its authority. This is Stoic independence, and independence is the foundation of all true mental control. 5. Complaining. Instead of acting, the habit that trains the mind to feel powerless. Complaining rarely feels like weakness. It feels like honesty, like release, like realism. But the Stoics saw something beneath the surface. They saw complaining as a rehearsal of helplessness. Each time you complain, you repeat the story of what went wrong without moving closer to a solution. The mind listens, and the mind learns. Over time, it begins to associate difficulty not with response, but with narration. You describe the problem. You replay the injustice. You recount the disappointment. And with every repetition, the mind becomes more comfortable talking about pain than doing something about it. This is why complaining feels relieving in the moment, but draining afterward. Relief comes from expression. Drain comes from stagnation. The Stoics understood that the mind becomes shaped by what it dwells on. When the mind dwells on complaint, it grows accustomed to resistance. Resistance drains strength. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the Stoic asks, "What is within my control right now?" That question does not deny pain. It redirects attention. Complaining locks attention on what cannot be changed. Action, even small action, restores movement, and movement restores dignity. The Stoics were not emotionless. They felt loss, they felt disappointment, they felt frustration, but they refused to let emotion become identity. They knew the danger of becoming a narrator of suffering instead of a participant in life. Complaining trains the mind to expect rescue. Action trains the mind to trust itself. Over time, this difference becomes visible. A person who complains often appears heavy. A person who acts quietly appears grounded, not because life is easier for them, but because they are not arguing with reality. The Stoics understood that life is difficult by nature. Strength is not avoiding difficulty. Strength is carrying it without resentment. This is why Stoics spoke sparingly about problems. They conserved mental energy. They did not waste attention on what could not be influenced. They focused on effort-judgment response. When you reduce complaining, something subtle but powerful happens. Your inner dialogue changes. You begin noticing opportunities for response instead of excuses for paralysis. Your presence shifts. People stop seeing you as someone who vents and begin seeing you as someone who moves. Respect grows quietly. Because the person who acts does not need to explain themselves. The Stoics believed this deeply. You cannot control events, but you can refuse to train your mind to feel powerless. Complaining trains powerlessness. Action trains authority. And authority begins inside the mind. If this message is resonating, it means you're already becoming more aware of your habits. And if you want more Stoic guidance like this, clear, disciplined, and practical, consider subscribing to NexusMind. Not for motivation, but for mastery. 6. Being too available. How constant access lowers your value. There is a quiet habit that weakens presence without anyone saying a word. Being too available, always responding, always adjusting, always making time, even when it costs you focus, peace, or direction. At first, this looks generous. It looks kind. It looks reliable. But over time, it sends a different message. My time is unprotected. The Stoics understood that anything unprotected is eventually devalued. Time is not unlimited. Energy is not infinite. And when you give both away without intention, your presence loses weight. Availability without boundaries teaches others how to treat you. When people know you will always answer, always show up, always accommodate, they stop appreciating it. Not out of cruelty, but out of human nature. The Stoics valued order. Order requires limits. Without limits, life becomes reactive. You stop choosing how your day unfolds and begin responding to everyone else's priorities. This creates internal tension. You feel busy, but not fulfilled, present, but not purposeful. The Stoics did not confuse kindness with self-neglect. They understood that strength includes knowing when to withhold access, not as punishment, not as ego, but as discipline. When you protect your time, you protect your attention, and attention shapes the mind. Being constantly available fragments focus. Your thoughts never settle. Your efforts remain shallow. Your inner world stays noisy. Stoics chose depth over availability. They did fewer things with greater intention. They showed up fully where they chose to be. And because of that, their presence felt meaningful. This does not mean becoming distant. It means becoming deliberate. When you begin setting quiet boundaries, you respond when you choose, not when you're pulled. You say yes with intention, not guilt. You protect time for effort, growth, and reflection. Something shifts. People begin treating your time seriously. They sense you are not waiting to be used. Respect grows naturally. The Stoics believed this deeply. A person who governs their time governs their life. When you stop being endlessly available, you do not lose connection. You gain authority. And authority, calm, unforced, and consistent, is the foundation of real presence. 7. Avoiding eye contact. How presence quietly leaves the room. Long before a word is spoken, your presence has already been felt. And nothing reveals presence faster than the eyes. The Stoics understood that strength is not announced, it is perceived. Avoiding eye contact is not a flaw of personality, it is a habit of withdrawal. When your eyes drop too quickly, when they search for exits, when they avoid stillness in moments of tension, the mind is signaling retreat, not outwardly, inwardly. And others sense this instinctively. Eye contact is not about dominance. It is about staying with the moment, staying with the discomfort, staying with yourself. Most people look away not because they are weak, but because they are overstimulated. Their mind is racing. How am I being perceived? What should I say next? What if this gets uncomfortable? So the body follows the mind. The gaze breaks, presence leaks. The Stoics believed the body is the training ground of the mind. A restless body creates a restless inner world. A grounded body invites calm. Eye contact anchors attention. When your gaze is steady, your thoughts slow. Your breathing deepens. Your nervous system receives a signal. There is no threat here. And with that signal, clarity returns. Avoiding eye contact interrupts this process. It keeps the nervous system alert. It keeps the mind searching for escape. It keeps the moment fragmented. Over time, this habit reshapes identity. You begin to feel less solid in conversations, less rooted in interactions, less certain of your own presence, even when your ideas are strong. The Stoics trained themselves to be present without performance. They did not stare to intimidate. They did not avert their gaze to appease. They held a calm, natural gaze, neither tense nor wandering. This balance communicates something powerful. I am here. I am comfortable in this moment. I do not need to hide. People respond to this immediately. They slow down. They listen more carefully. They adjust their tone, not because you demanded respect, but because presence invites it. Avoiding eye contact, on the other hand, creates uncertainty. Others feel unsure how to engage you. The interaction loses structure. The emotional rhythm breaks. This is why presence matters more than words. You can say the right thing, but if your eyes retreat, your body contradicts you. The Stoics understood alignment. When mind, body, and intention move together, authority emerges naturally. Practicing steady eye contact is not about forcing confidence. It is about training familiarity. You stay a second longer. You breathe instead of escaping. You remain when tension appears. And slowly, the mind learns, this is safe. I can stay. I don't need to flee the moment. This changes everything. Your thoughts stop racing ahead. Your reactions soften. Your presence deepens. You stop performing connection and start embodying it. The Stoics believed this deeply. A person who can remain present without shrinking cannot be easily unsettled. Eye contact is not confrontation. It is grounded awareness. And grounded awareness is one of the clearest expressions of inner strength there is. 8. Explaining your worth. Instead of showing it, the habit that silently destroys respect. There is a moment when strength turns into weakness, and most people miss it. It's the moment you start telling people who you are instead of letting them discover it. The moment you begin explaining your worth, you place yourself on trial. You may not intend to. You may simply want to be understood. But to others, it sounds like this: I need you to believe me. And confidence never needs belief. It creates certainty. People who explain their worth often say, I'm actually a very loyal person. I don't usually act like this. I'm not weak. I've just been through a lot. I deserve respect too. None of these statements are lies, but they reveal something subtle, a fear that actions alone are not convincing enough. The Stoics warned against this impulse. They believed that character is not something you announce. It is something time uncovers. When you explain your worth, you interrupt that process. You rush what should unfold naturally, and anything rushed looks insecure. Strong people let silence work for them. They understand that. Consistency builds trust. Discipline builds reputation. Restraint builds authority, and none of these require explanation. The moment you say, let me explain myself, you lower your position in the exchange, because explanation shifts power outward. It says, I need you to agree for this to be true. But Stoic strength does not depend on agreement. It depends on alignment. The Stoics did not argue for their character. They lived in a way that made argument unnecessary. If someone doubted them, they did not panic. If someone misunderstood them, they did not rush to correct it. They knew that truth does not need urgency, only insecurity does. Explaining your worth also creates a dangerous pattern. You start performing instead of living. You adjust behavior so it can be explained. You make choices that sound good instead of being right. You begin managing perception instead of building substance. And slowly, without realizing it, you start living for the audience, not your principles. Stoics rejected this completely. They trusted that those who matter will see. Those who don't will never understand anyway. And chasing understanding from the wrong people is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. Here's the hard truth most people avoid. If someone needs you to explain your value, they were never in a position to judge it. Real value is felt before it is understood. That's why disciplined people intimidate others quietly. That's why calm people are taken seriously without speeches. That's why silence often speaks louder than defense. When you stop explaining your worth, your presence becomes heavier, your words become final, your energy becomes grounded. People observe instead of challenge. You stop convincing and start embodying. The Stoics believed this deeply. A man who knows his value does not negotiate it. He does not advertise it. He does not defend it. He does not beg for recognition. He lives in a way that makes recognition unavoidable. And that is why the strongest people are often misunderstood at first. They don't explain. They let time do the talking, and time never lies. Final conclusion. Weakness isn't always loud. Most of the time it's subtle. It hides in habits you repeat without noticing. Over-explaining, seeking approval, reacting too quickly, proving yourself instead of building yourself. The Stoics understood this clearly. Strength is not something you add, it's something you stop leaking. When you remove these habits, something changes. You speak less and mean more. You react less and choose better. You stop explaining and start embodying. Respect follows naturally, not because you demanded it, but because your presence no longer asks for permission. This is Stoic strength, quiet, disciplined, unmistakable, and once you feel it, you'll never go back to the noise.